Hi guys. Hello. So I know, I know things suck right now. They're not great. If you're in the United States of America, it's really not fun. If you're everywhere else, you're probably also scared for a lot of other reasons. We're hanging in there. Everything's fine. We must carry on, as they say. And the only way I know how to carry on is to talk about the books that I've been using to escape. So this is just going to be like a little January wrap up. I'm hoping to do this monthly, get back in the swing of things, you know? And hopefully I'll be posting a video every month and then like a Substack wrap up every month. So if you still don't follow me on Substack, I'm there sometimes. I don't know. It's very sporadic. Usually it's every 2 weeks or so. I already have the wrap up over there. Maybe you've already seen it. Maybe this is all just pointless. But we're going to carry on anyway because that's the theme of this month, this moment right now. January was so long, as you are well aware. It's the longest month of the year for no reason. And I feel like everybody else was just like losing their mind, which like same, I also lost my mind multiple times for a lot of different reasons. But because January was so long, I feel like I read a lot. I didn't read like quantitatively as many books as I read last January, but quality wise, insane quality. Pages wise, I read more pages this year than last year by like, I think at least 400 pages. I'm kind of thriving. Even though the world's on fire and everything sucks, I'm kind of thriving. So we're just going to roll with it. I'm sorry if you're not thriving. I don't know how I'm thriving. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but we're here. Let's do this. Okay. Oh my God. I almost forgot the first series that I read this month because it's a reread and I listened to the audiobook and it was great, but like I've already read it, so like in my head it doesn't really count. I reread Dark Rise, everybody. I have no excuse. I just felt like I needed it. So I've talked about Dark Rise a lot, actually. I have a whole video about this series, and then I also brought it up in my favorite books of 2024 wrap-up thing. So you probably have heard me yell about it. If you haven't, it's YA fantasy. It's written by C.S. Pacat, who also wrote Captive Prince. Essentially, I'd say this is kind of like a queer YA knockoff of The Lord of the Rings, except not in the way you'd expect, and especially not in book 2. Book 1 is good. It's like a solid 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it on the reread. There were a lot of things that I missed on the first read because I didn't know what was going on. And on the second read, it was making me crazy. But the second book is truly C.S. Pacat's bread and butter is book 2. And this book 2 slays. It is... It's devastating, actually. When I first read it, that ending really got me, and when I reread it, the ending was the same. And we still don't have an announcement for book 3, so I'm still suffering. But I would recommend this series if you like A Darker Shade of Magic or The Infernal Devices, Lord of the Rings, and also The Mummy, ? This book really just gives me The Mummy, Brendan Fraser vibes, for very specific reasons, and not for the whole book, but yeah, I was very much thinking about how this is like the closest you can get to adult in YA, because everything is a metaphor for sex if you think about it. And it's not even subtle, like especially in book 2, it is just like nobody has sex, but there's a lot of sex being had, if you know what I mean. But seriously though, C.S. Pacat, when are we getting book 3? I can't wait any longer. I told you guys that I wanted to read more fantasy this year. I have a whole reading goals video if you want to see. The goal is to read fantasy and books in translation and a little bit of nonfiction. And that's essentially what I did this month. I really committed to my goals and I succeeded. There were 2 fantasy series that I started this month. And I haven't finished them, but I've been having a blast reading about them. And they're dramatically different series. But the first one is one that has been on my TBR for months, for years, for a very long time. And I was committed to starting the series this year, hoping that I would enjoy it, not certain how I would feel. I've been told many things, that it's crazy, that it's incredible, that like it is the reason we have modern day fantasy. And I have to say, I did not expect it. I didn't expect it. I finished the first book on January 2nd and immediately was like, cool, this series will be in my favorite books of the year video. It's The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hall. Specifically, I have been reading the Farseer trilogy. If you don't know, can you even see that? Is that good? If you don't know, The Realm of the Elderlings is a classic fantasy series that originally the first book was published in 1995. So if you're doing the math, yes, I am as old as Assassin's Apprentice. It is 30 years old this year, as I will be in 3 months. It's going through like a weird renaissance. I don't know if it's because it's turning 30 or because they got new covers within the last couple of years. But like literally, I have found so many mutuals on Tumblr who also started reading this series. And so a lot of us have been collectively losing our minds together. But it's like a cult classic. Like a lot of people really like it. I know a lot of booktubers that I'm friends with really enjoy the series. And so I was really excited to pick it up, not really knowing anything about it other than the fact that it is 16 books long and there is a lot of queer baiting. And it's taken over my life. So if you don't know, I will tell you. Book 1, Assassin's Apprentice. This is about one boy, and essentially the series follows him as he grows up. And I haven't read the whole series, so I cannot confirm exactly how it plays out. I do know at one point in one of the other series, the main character is like in his 50s, and so he does age. And the start of this book specifically, it's kind of like a story within a story thing where like he's his old self talking about his younger self, being like, here's how I grew up and here's the story of my life, etc. So he's kind of like writing a book, and it feels very similar to A Course of Dragons for a lot of reasons, but specifically the like book within a book, I'm giving you a report kind of thing. This one is less of a report and more of like, I'm writing the history book of the 6 duchies, and here is my story, and I am Fitz Chivalry. It's just... I'm sorry, I'm having a breakdown. It's fine. The main character, Fitz Chivalry, he is a bastard. And so when we start this book, he is 6 years old, and we get to see him taken to the keep, essentially, to stay with the king, to stay with royalty. His father is a prince who is the king in waiting, and rather than claim his bastard, politically, he thinks it's smarter to abdicate and not talk to his son ever. So he steps away. The bastard Fitz ends up going to the keep, and he gets raised by the stable master, kind of. And also, he becomes an assassin. He gets trained to be an assassin. So he's an assassin's apprentice in Assassin's Apprentice. Who would have thought? And so we kind of get to see him in book 1 grow up into a teenager, and you get to learn a little bit about the world, figure out the politics, and it's... I thought book 1 was crazy. Guys, I gotta say, I've read a lot of fantasy. This is one of the most insane series I've ever read in my life. It's got everything you could want, really. One of the main things I like about it is the magic system. I think it's very unique. And it's just really, I haven't even figured out most of the magic in here because there's still a lot left to be revealed. But the magic is pretty genius. I'm really obsessed with it, actually. But aside from that, like, the characters are really... really great. If I think about it too hard, I'll lose my mind. But more than anything, this is like a political fantasy series. Like, there is action, there is death, there is magic, there is all of that stuff. There is romance. But mostly I would say a lot of this is the politics, and I love political fantasy because so much of it is like trying to figure out what the other side is doing and like trying to beat the other one mentally. And I don't know, it's very enjoyable. Book 2, Royal Assassin. Best book in the series so far. Absolutely blew my fucking mind. This is the perfect combination of like emotional character relationships and development and growth. And also the most insane fucking batshit awful terrible ending you've ever read in your life. Coming at you live from my breakdown. I'm almost done with Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. Like, I'm at like 92% done. I'm like so close to the end. And I am losing my fucking... The ending. It's so crazy. Never mind. I actually would rather be dead. He's so real for that, because me too. If I was an old man, I would be like, I'll just call it. It's fine. Whatever. Let me go. Murdered? Question mark? Just give me some kerosene and I will do the deed. I will get it done. Just leave. I got this. The Shakespeare really jumped out in this one. I gotta say, this poor boy. Cool. No doubt. I will simply kill. I will kill. I just didn't expect it. I mean, none of it is expected. This is just, I love fantasy because it's so fucking insane. Running, giggling through the palace, through the keep. I don't know why I doubted this series. I didn't outwardly doubt it. I was just kind of like, yeah, like surely this won't awaken anything in me. And it has. I'm not even done. I literally am not even done. So I read the first 2 books and I am so close to the end of the third one. I've been dragging my feet for like 2 weeks reading this because I'm reading this one on paperback, and I don't read fantasy on paperback because it takes me 3 times as long to read it. But if you've read Assassin's Quest, Ass Quest, if you will, you'll understand my pain. It is one of the most ridiculous books I've ever read. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling about this series, but I just have got to say, Robin Hobb came out of nowhere, and she will be on my most read authors list this year. I don't know how many I'm going to read. I had kind of thought that I would read series 1 and then be like, cool. Maybe next year I'll start the second series, but we all know I cannot be normal about anything. And so I have a feeling if I don't read all 16 this year, I will at least... The goal is to read the Tawny Man series. I think that's the 3rd series. I'm not really sure. I want to read it so bad. I haven't even talked about the queer baiting. I'm going to have to make a whole video about this. I will make a whole video about this. That was stuff that I read. You guys, something happened to me this month. Oh my god. So when I was waiting to read Assassin's Quest, I had finished Royal Assassin, and the library was not going to give me the ebook of Assassin's Quest for like a month. And so I had already ordered the paperback. I was waiting for the paperback to come in. And I was like, okay, I have 2 days. I could just sit. I could not read. It's normal. I could just rest. I don't need to be reading all the time. And I was like, that's crazy. I could like read something, I could pick up another book. And so I did. And I ended up reading it in a day. And then I picked up the next book in this series and I read it in a day. And I had to like stop myself when I got the paperback of Assassin's Quest. And I was like, no. We have to savor this other series that we've started because you've already read 2 books in 2 days. And this isn't even a series that I really had on my TBR until the beginning of January. It wasn't something that I ever knew about. I wasn't interested in it. Apparently I had added this to my TBR in 2021 on Goodreads, and I just completely like forgot and had no idea what I was doing. But my therapist recommended this series to me. We were talking about how I want to read more books in translation in 2025. I did talk about this in my 2025 reading goals video if you want to look at that. But if you haven't seen it, essentially, I just want to read more books that are written in different languages that were translated into English. Because all I read are English books, and that's stupid. We should read from more places. So they recommended me this series that they were reading, and they were like, I don't know if you will like it, but it's gay and it's Chinese. And I was like, yeah, sure, like whatever, I'll try it. It's a book series that was adapted into an anime, a Chinese anime, and Chinese anime specifically is, I think it's pronounced Donghua. For any and all of the Chinese words that I say in this video, please forgive me. I am literally trying my best, but it is very difficult. I've never gotten into anime before. Like I've seen a couple episodes of Demon Slayer, and I have watched Studio Ghibli, and that's like the extent of my knowledge with like Asian animation. And I've never ever gotten into Chinese anything. So I was like, like, I don't know, I'll try it, but like I'm not expecting very much because I don't really like anime. I cannot tell you how this series has rewired my brain. And already from like a month of reading one new language, one new translation thing, I feel like a new person. And it's been so fun. So much fun. It also has been driving me crazy. Anyway, it's Heaven Official's blessing, everybody. I'm not done with it. So I've read through volume 4. Technically, I finished volume 4 last night on the 1st of February, but I've read through volume 4, and I have watched both seasons of the Donghua. It's on Crunchyroll. You could check it out. What's it about? Heaven Official's Blessing, or Tianguan Sifu. Chinese is a language all about pronunciation, and I just know that I'm butchering it, but I'm going to try. Tianguan Sifu, Heaven Official's Blessing. It is about... It's about gods and heaven and ghosts and demons. And so in this world, there there is a prince, a crown prince, and he ends up ascending to heaven to be a heavenly official, which is like essentially a god, but not really, but kind of. It is. No, he is. He's a god. He's a god. So he ascends when he's 17 to become a god, and he is beloved by many. He is so wonderful, so lucky, so beautiful, and a lot of things happen in his time as a heavenly official, and he ends up descending heaven twice. And so at the beginning of the first book, the first volume, he is ascending for the third time up to heaven. And at this point, after 800 years of doing this, everybody hates him. He has become incredibly unlucky and very unloved. None of the mortals remember him or care about him. And he has lost pretty much everything he ever cared about. But he's fine. He's just like so happy to be here. He just wants to help people. He wants to make the world a better place. And he's doing his best. He's doing his best. We kind of follow him as he goes on these like quests to help people, to help the mortals, to solve like little mysteries for the heavenly officials, in order to, you know, gain merits and gain favor and gain followers. And as he goes along, he ends up making friends. He ends up meeting some people. And one of the people that he meets is this guy. This guy named Hua Cheng. I didn't even tell you the name of the first guy. The crown prince's name is Xilian, and I love him, but Hua Cheng, low-key, kind of the reason I started it is Hua Cheng. He is also about 800 years old, and he is a ghost king, and he has a lot of power and a lot of riz, and the two of them fall in love. Here's the thing. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it. It's not like, you know, intellectual literature. When I was starting to get into translation, I really was under the impression, you know, that I would read translated books that like are so intellectual and intelligent, and I would learn all these things. And that's not this series. This series does not have a lot of brain cells. It just is so damn fun. It is fun. It is queer as fuck. It is romantic. It is sweet. It's funny. But the writing style is shit. And I haven't figured out if it's because of the original Chinese, or because of the translation, or because somewhere in the middle, like, you know, lines got crossed and it just isn't well crafted for English. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But when I was showing my friends this, when I was reading the first couple of volumes, I was like sending them a bunch of like funny excerpts, you know, and they were like, Jenna, this is really bad. Why are you reading this? And I'm like, you don't understand. If you just commit to the bit, it's really great. It's really fantastic. If you like characters, if you like plot, like it's just so twisty and fun. And I think the thing that's most compelling to me too is that like it is, and it feels like you're reading anime. And the actual Donghua series on Crunchyroll, I didn't plan on watching it because, again, I don't watch anime and I never understood it before. But I'm changing my tune. I've learned from my mistakes. There's definitely some internalized racism that was happening along the way, I'm sure. But it was even better. It was better, question mark, as an animated show. Like the plot just lends itself super well to animation and like serialized like episodes. And I don't know, the whole thing is just like, it's like a whole new world has opened up to me. And I feel so excited about it because it's just so fun. And I will be reading more from this author. I will be getting into more Danmei, I think. That's the word for Chinese gay stuff, I guess. It's a specific genre. Anyway, I'm done talking to you about this, but I will be making another video because I have so many thoughts. Other than that, I only read 2 other things. The first one is a nonfiction book because I have to read a nonfiction book every month. And it's called The Lonely City by Olivia Lang, and it's really, really good. This originally, I think, came out in 2016, and it was hot stuff when it came out. Everybody loved it, and it's been on my TBR for a little while. I don't know what I was expecting it to be. I kind of was thinking it would be a little bit more like sociological, scientific, like here's what it means to be lonely, here's how we can overcome loneliness kind of thing. But objectively, it's more about like art history and personal memoir, but way more about art history. It really was, it's a look at New York City and specifically like the artists that have been in New York City over the years. And so a couple of the ones that the author talks about Edward Hopper, Andy Warhol, David Wojnarowicz. There's a couple more in there. Henry Dodger. Yeah, there's a couple. But anyway, it was really, really fascinating. Really, really fun to read. Well, fun is a strong word. It was interesting to read about. It is a little bit melancholy because it's about loneliness. And a lot of the artists that the author explores were not happy individuals per se. There's a lot of darkness and a lot of, again, melancholy because it's lonely. But I really, really liked the art history. You know, I like art, but I've never really been one for like art history, and I also don't know very much art history. And so I feel like I learned a lot, and I would be very interested to, number one, read more from this author, but also read more art history books. The other thing that was really cool about it that I didn't even expect, it is very queer because the author is non-binary, but there's a whole section about David Wojnarowicz. If you know David Wojnarowicz, he was an artist from the 90s who died of AIDS. And so there is like a little section about the AIDS crisis. And I've been really enjoying learning more about the AIDS crisis over the past year. And so it was like, like that's nice. I know more about AIDS now. That sounded way too happy for that comment, but you get it. You understand. I will definitely be reading more from them. Which brings us to the last book that I read, which was a comic book. I have had this loosely on my TBR for like 4 years, and it was the kind of thing that I found it in like 2021 because of a Tumblr post, and I went to go research it, and I couldn't figure out how to read it, couldn't figure out how to get my hands on it because I think it's Korean, and I was like, well, I'll never read it. That's fine. And then I went on with my life, and I figured out recently that they have been doing like an actual like bind up of it. And so I ended up, getting the ebook from the library, and then I could read it. And I think it's a serialized webtoon. But you have to like pay for it after a certain point, and I didn't want to do that. So anyway, it's Under the Oak Tree. And it did kind of fit with my anime vibes because it is Asian comic graphic novel-y thing. So I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel about it. On the one hand, I don't think it's very good. Like, I think I gave it 3 stars, but it was compelling enough that like if somebody gave me the rest of the story, I think I could read it in like a day, because it was just like I wanted to know more. Like, it was not great, but I wanted to know more. It follows this girl who is not a princess, but it's kind of set in like a medieval-y type world. There are dragons, there are princes and kings and whatever. And she is this girl whose father has sold her off into marriage, essentially. But she is not your typical, she's not like other girls. She stutters and she's really shy, and essentially she is very closed off because she grew up in an abusive household. And so she has been married to this guy who is a knight, and they've been married for 3 years, but he was off at war, fighting dragons, I don't know, doing whatever. And she's under the impression that he hates her and he doesn't want to be married to her, and he's going to go after this princess that everybody says he's going to marry instead. And so she is just like suffering, having a bad time, very anxious. And he comes back home from war, wherever he is, and he's like, all right, let's go. We're going to my castle. And she's like, what do you don't you hate me? And he's like, why would I hate you? And so it's definitely, he like tries to take care of her, and he doesn't understand why she's so like the way that she is, and she won't tell him the truth about how she grew up, because there's all this like propriety and whatever. And so anyway, they are compelling enough, and the graphics are really beautiful. However, my problem with it is that the main love interest guy kind of a little bit rapey, in a way. Like, she's willing. She's not consenting, but she isn't really consenting, because I think she's just so anxious, and so she thinks kind of that she has to like do stuff for him because they're married and because that's what's expected of her. And so he is gentle and he is like sweet and making sure that she's taken care of, but also like he's constantly just like, oh my god, I can't believe the way you looked at that guy, I want to fuck you right now. And she's like, I think down the line it could be really good, but I just don't really like the main love interest guy, because he seems kind of like a dick who's trying to be a nice guy. So anyway, I got through volume 1 or whatever of the physical comic, and I don't know that I'll read any more of it, but it was interesting. I did read it. I do want the world for Maxie. It didn't hit me the way that Heaven Official's Blessing did, so it's fine. Mostly I have just been sitting in my Hualien feels, thinking a lot about Fitz and the Fool, trying not to lose my brain for, everything else that's going on. But anyway, we're doing pretty okay, all things considered. I am up to snuff on my reading challenge goal, so at this point I am still on track to read 100 books. Not that it really matters, but that's where we're at. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day, and stay safe out there, folks. Bye.